All right, so welcome again, everyone. It is 9:01 and we have a little over 30 people in the room. So why don't we go ahead and get started with this week's coalition meeting. Rosemary, would you like to kick us off?
Thank you, Rob. Welcome everyone to our open table, where we invite everyone committed to ending homelessness to work together, to learn and strategize, to question proposed solutions, and to persist in building a stronger community. Today, when we take some time to talk with each other in small groups, we'll be asked to think about how to help create more community support for solutions to homelessness in our own neighborhoods. This question led me down lots of thought and pathways, and I kept thinking about the importance of perseverance, of having a goal, a vision of something better, something that would make the world a fairer and more just place, and keeping at it in the face of resistance, apathy, fear, and lack of resources. And since this is Women's History Month, I thought about the US fight for the right to vote, acknowledging the existence of women as full citizens, as persons with rights, about the 72 years long campaign from 1848 at Seneca Falls Declaration of Women's Rights to the ratification of the amendment that gave women the right to vote, through the fraught years of deep cleavages in the movement over strategies that insisted on the inclusion or exclusion of women of different races, about the disagreements over the US entry into World War I, and yet the perseverance toward the goal, and even after the achievement of the goal in 1920, the continuing perseverance needed 100 years later to secure and celebrate the talent of women. This week of two amazing African-American leaders, Ketanji Brown Jackson for the Supreme Court and Lisa Cook for the Federal Reserve. We gather in the context of these Senate hearings about these historic appointments with our continuing goal that it's possible and absolutely necessary to end homelessness in our county, and therefore for all the citizens and residents of our county. And so how will we help create more community support for solutions to homelessness in our Pierce County neighborhoods? There's a bit of advice credited to a medieval Saint Francis of Assisi, who said, apparently, start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. So welcome to our open table where we promote doing the impossible. And how do we do that together when we meet together? Well, we have some norms, and I think you usually post those, Rob, if you can do that. For people, we ask people to, in this Zoom space, to mute ourselves when we're not talking, to use the Zoom raise hand feature for making comments when you'd like to do that and be recognized, to limit distractions by turning off the video when you're doing other things, taking calls or doing whatever else you may be doing during this period, and then to use the chat as a way to network with each other, to say anything you'd like to say relative to our topics, or to meet each other on the chat as a way to have a conversation while other things are happening. We promote that, we don't discourage it. And as we meet together, the kind of respect that we have for the different strategies and approaches that we take are important to recognize and commit to, and also to speak up when we have something to say, but don't speak up too often because we have a very, very big group. So to pay attention to that and pay attention to the time on the schedule's agenda. So with that, I'd like to invite any people who are new to the coalition's meetings who would like to say hello, or who may not have been here for some time, to reintroduce yourself so that we can welcome you, and like to know what you're associated with. If you want to put something in the chat about a group, if you're associated with a group, that's something you can do as well. So just raise your hand, or raise the hand function, and Rob, if you'll recognize people, that'd be great.
Yes. Courtney.
Yes, my name is Courtney Love. Some of you might know me from when I ran for City Council in 2019, but I am now working for the Washington Lived Experience Coalition, and I am the Pierce County staff representative. and I am glad to be here. And I know some of you, and it's good to see you. And thank you.
Well, welcome, Courtney. It's really wonderful to have you here.
All right, Rosemary, I'm not seeing any other
right.
hands. If anybody just wants to turn their mic on, if you want to introduce yourself, that's another option as well.
Well, welcome everyone. And again, as Rob said too, just if you want to introduce yourself on the chat, we welcome you to do that as well. And some kind of contact, if you'd like someone to contact you, put that there as well. So Rob, on to you.
Okay, great. Well, it's good to see everybody again this morning, and let's get started with our first standing item that we talk about every week, which is an update on what people are seeing this week on the streets. This portion of the meeting is meant to be an opportunity for folks to share what they're seeing with changes in their neighborhoods. We'll mention some information, I'm sure, about sweeps that have taken place this week or that are scheduled to take place next week. So I open the floor. Again, use the raise hand function if you can, or simply raise your hand physically if you're on screen and I'll call on you. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Just to acknowledge the couple of sweeps underway and pending. One on J Street earlier this week, and then there is one currently underway yesterday and today over on 40th and South Fife behind the post office. What's interesting and significant about these sweeps is, or particularly the second one, is it's not conducted by the HEAL team, but rather is come about from code enforcement. So the nature of the notice was a 72-hour notice, and different set of participants out there. They've got some a backhoe and a front loader, and they're doing some fairly serious and aggressive cleanup of the site, removal, different kind of operation though. And then for those, there's a second sweep, or a third sweep actually, scheduled for under the Puyallup Bridge next week. I believe it's on the 31st, which would be what, next Thursday. So we've got 3 sweeps going on inside of about a week. And one of the issues is just the sheer numbers of people that are being displaced. And so it'll be interesting to see how this all, where folks settle down and how this transpires as the weather warms up.
Yeah, and Richard, the sweep that is scheduled for East 26th Street and under 705, that area that you mentioned off Puyallup Avenue is, I think it's supposed to happen on the 29th, next Tuesday. So, and what the city said is that they believe there are 10 structures and 15 people in that area. That is just up the hill a little ways from the previous cleanup that happened under I-705. Anyone else with updates about what they have been seeing on the streets, needs, things that are particular changes with the change in seasons, anything that you think would be helpful for the larger group to know? Kenneth, I think you're raising your hand. Okay.
I can never find the raise hand button.
That's fine.
We're definitely seeing the change in needs over here, where people are less likely to want to go into shelter life or into temporary housing, and are more likely to try to find safety by asking for a tent so that they can go somewhere else. which I'm sure is related to the weather changes.
Yeah, I'm sure it is as well. Kind of that seasonal change that takes place.
And
Yeah, Richard.
I'll jump in again. Two other things I've got going on. One is with the help of Lori Davenport doing graphics and printing and wonderful stuff. We have created a second installment of what we're calling the Tacoma Tent News, which is a brief newsletter that I've been distributing to people in the encampments. The first issue, I let them know about the memorial service that Ed Jacobs held last Sunday. The current one has a focus on the, help me if I get these words wrong, but the Homelessness Connect activity that's going to come up on April 6th. And so it's a way to reach out to people actually living in the encampments, letting them know about some of the services that are available. And it's also a way for me, it gives me another chance on the outreach to interact with people that are living in the encampments. So printed copies of those are available. Electronic copies I have sent out to some. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can figure out how to post this on the chat. But that's one of the things that made perfect sense to me, which was to try and simply communicate to folks that are living out there. The other thing that I have posted part of on the chat is next Thursday, I am hosting a second conversation on Voices to End Homelessness, which is simply an idea that I've borrowed from others, and having Lyle Kwasim, Debbie Regala, and some other folks focus this time on the newly adopted comprehensive plan to end homelessness, and just having a conversation with some community leaders and folks that are quite experienced on how to implement and what their views are on how to successfully implement a plan. So anybody in the coalition, you're all certainly welcome to listen in as participants. It'll be a Zoom meeting next Thursday at 10 o'clock, and I'll try to get the Zoom information posted on the chat as well. So those are a couple things I have going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. You've been busy, so appreciate it. Patricia, you have your hand up.
I think he just said it. There's no Zoom link or anything. So if you could get that, Richard, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. And Ed, you have your hand up.
I do. One of the things that has bothered me for months now is that we have information that is handed out by various governmental organizations that don't add up to what I'm seeing on the street and what Richard and others are seeing on the street. The city says there are 10 structures and 15 people. I would suggest that if there are 15 structures, we're talking 30 people or around 30 people, because the average tent use is with 2 people and up to 4 people or more during the snowstorm. So I don't believe that you're only going to be affecting 15 people, City of Tacoma. You're going to be affecting a lot more than that. And I would encourage all of us, when we have information that is contrary to what is being published, that we raise our hands and bring it up to the coalition, because skewing the numbers doesn't benefit anyone. So thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Ed. I think we need to make sure we have our own understanding of how many people are being impacted, and not just take those numbers as being what's the situation on the street. Anyone else have items to share for what they're seeing on the streets this week? All right, I am not seeing.
Hi,
Yeah,
so Rick Salmon is trying to get in the room and he's having trouble, so I'm walking him through it. So he'll be here in a minute.
I think I'm
perfect.
here.
And it looks like you made it, Rick. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. So let's go ahead and shift gears to let Rick talk with us a little bit about what's going on at St. Leo's Parish as part of our community spotlight. So Rick, you have the floor.
Oh, good morning. So yeah, I'll give kind of an overview of emergency services. We've been in operation through the pandemic, so we've never shut down. And emergency services basically is it's a small program, but basically it tries to address the small issues that people run into that trip themselves up, basically in their process of securing employment or keeping employment. If they're on the edge of homelessness, we try to identify what's going on and try to keep them from going into homelessness. Or if somebody is moving out of, let's say, a homeless situation and have come into some barriers, we try to kind of overcome them or try to figure out what needs to happen, whether we assist or we advocate and get other assistance from other agencies. On the medical end, a lot of times people just simply have a bunch of co-payments that they can't get because they really don't have a lot of money at the end of the month after paying everything else, or dental or optical issues. If people are having difficulties just managing the paperwork, and particularly since COVID, things have been more online, more remote, and more inaccessible to people who are not super tech savvy or even have a phone or access to a computer. So we try to manage all that. It's a small budget. Just number wise, I think usually out the door direct service is about $42,000 to $45,000 a year. However, that's actually doubled since COVID. So and like normally we don't do rental assistance, but we have been doing some small amounts of rental assistance simply because you have to do it if the needs kind of warrant it. Regarding a lot of the housing or rental assistance programs out there, they're all bottlenecked. I don't see it from my end, a lot of people getting a lot of assistance. It's got to be directly COVID related, and there's a waiting list that's pretty extreme. And normally we're dealing with people that are having problems with homeless or housing problems because they don't have the income, and affordable housing doesn't exist. So that seems to be the big issue. We see about, I would say about 77 clients a month. So that's direct service with some financial assistance. We also provide service to people that are just on the street, whether it's just toiletry items. We did work with just small amounts of clothing, like just coats and hats and gloves and things like that. But for the last probably 3 weeks now, we're trying to open up a little bit of a clothing boutique, we call it, because people are just not able to get clothing very well either. I know there's a program run by the I think Pierce County, not too far away. They have a clothing shop, which is nice to have in a community, but there still seems to be a need. And I know Nativity House has a clothing locker right here on campus, but my understanding it's only accessible to those who are being housed at Nativity House. So we have a lot of people that are on the streets that just don't have access to that. It seems like a need. So we've been doing that. We are working more and more with St. Leo's Food Connection. So we did some outreach to that client population directly, doing like a wellness survey on a weekly basis for a few months now, just kind of making ourselves known there, and making the assumption that if people are there getting food on a regular basis, they probably have other financial burdens or strains in their world then maybe we can provide some sort of an intervention. Ultimately, what we plan on doing here at St. Leo's is the food bank program and emergency services will merge. I hope to have that actually happen completely by the fall. So the portal for assistance here at St. Leo's will be through the Food Connection. And we're going to try to kind of just provide more wraparound services for those folks at the Food Connection, because they're here already, and it just seems like a better way to run the programs and kind of focus on more of the, like I said, wraparound, instead of having two separate programs, in many cases helping the same group of people. We normally run Tuesday through Friday here. We do have a UWT intern, so that's been going on. We had UWT students from the social work department here for years. We had a little hiatus from that for a couple of years, but now we're back on that. So Tuesdays at this point, Tuesdays is basically our kind of a client catch day for Food Connection. And then we have scheduled appointments for clients on Wednesday and Thursday all day. And Friday is usually my admin catch-up day. But all in all, we end up seeing about 77 folks, 75 to 77 clients a week. Most of our funding comes from just support of the program through the parish. We occasionally get grants, but we're not set up to do a lot of that because we just don't have the staff. Right now, we have a meeting scheduled for UWT next week. It's not necessarily a kind of a seeking money thing, but we're moving forward on a bigger program where we'd like to take on an additional undergrad UWT student. So we would have a office here at the parish, and then we would have a satellite office, or eventually, hopefully, the main office would be at the Food Connection. So that'll be operating, I'm hoping next fall. And then if we could secure more funding somehow, because obviously the more client contact we have, the more money we're going to be shoveling out the front door. So we do need to try to figure out how to finance this expansion. My hope is that I could maybe secure a grant in short term, and then in the long term have more in-depth conversations with funders of the Food Connection, and how we could kind of like tap into that resource. So we would have food funds going directly to the Food Connection, but some would be dedicated to non-food support. But it would still be going to families and members of our clientele.
Great.
Yes.
Do you have a moment for some questions?
Sure.
Okay. Teresa, I see your hands up.
So just a question. It sounds like people are no longer supposed to come to St. Leo's Rectory for emergency services. They would always access it through the food bank. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. We're going to go that way.
Okay.
That is, right now it's both ways. So in September, I'm hoping that eventually the portal will be Food Connection.
So when people do go to the Food Connection, would they just go through the line like all other Food Connection clients?
Yeah, so right. And then if somebody is needing services there, we get a name, we have conversation. If they're registered with the food bank and they're in our system, then we open up a file. We do files. We have a kind of a case management system. So a file would be opened up to them, and kind of a case would be opened up, and we would start working.
Would there be anybody who outreach workers could contact there to just check if it's a good referral for that? I mean, so if they're looking for rental assistance, for instance, they wouldn't send someone down there to stand in line and then find out that was not a possibility. Is there any
Well,
contact?
then that would probably be just a phone call to this office, and then we would screen calls from this office.
Okay, so you'll continue to be a contact for that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's what I was curious about.
So,
All right.
any other questions?
I'm not seeing any hands up at the moment. Well, I appreciate you, all the work that you're doing and coming here and letting us know about it. Is there anything in particular that the folks on this call can do to be supportive?
Well, I mean, you're all kind of doing the work. It's just extremely difficult, and we're running into just a problem that everybody has, that the housing system, the housing situation is the critical thing, and it's not happening. And so we're just getting more calls for that assistance, and we are not robust enough to respond to all of it, but we're doing the best we can, like probably all you guys are. So.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, well, Kenneth, I see your hand up.
Rick, how's your percentage of placement right now?
Placement,
Like finding people houses and stuff?
it's slim. Basically, we don't search for the housing. We try to, I do have a volunteer who tries to kind of go through information on the website to make a more manageable list of what might be open and what's not. We have a conversation with folks, and we try to search out housing that might make a fit, but it's difficult. I mean, I think in the last 2 months, we've had like 4 people that were able to secure some sort of housing. But also we've also maintained people in housing. You could add another probably 20 people that we've helped to maintain their housing by some rental assistance or trying to take care of another bill to keep them just afloat. But the rents keep going up, so it's
Yeah.
So I was wondering if Rick and I see Shannon from CLR and a couple of other RAP programs, those of us who do the intensive casework, if you all would like to get together and sit down and just talk about resource coordination, we can do that. If that would be helpful.
All right. So thank you again, Rick, for coming this morning.
Pleasure.
And really appreciate the information. And if that connection can be made, that'd be great. So we do need to move on in our agenda. Teresa, you have your hand up before we go.
Just a quick thing. Kenneth, if you put your contact information in the chat with a note about who you want to contact you, that'd be great.
Doing that now. Thank you.
All right,
Perfect.
thanks, folks. Have a great
All right.
weekend, and thanks for all the good work you guys do. Take care. We'll see you
Yeah.
around.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
So let's shift to the next item on our agenda. And this is an item that that Jay brought to us last week. And we wanted to give an opportunity for Jay to share a little bit about perspective on why folks may be put up a barrier when you're interacting with them and they're living houseless at the time. And so Jay, we're running a little long on the agenda. Could we do this in like between 5 and 10 minutes?
I should be able to. It shouldn't be a problem.
Perfect. All right, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jay. I am more of a homeless advocate currently while I'm working on my project for long-term homelessness. There are a lot of barriers that we run into. One of them is strictly just numbers. There isn't enough housing. There's more homeless than we realize. When we're dealing with people, what we're not realizing is a factor of fear, a factor of disconnection, a feeling that we are not part of the rest of society, that we are separate from everyone else. There's this issue where we have been called something and have materialized this idea that places us separate from everyone else. We are the homeless. We live in different categories. We live with a different skill set, and those skill sets take time to relearn how to just be part of society. So when everybody comes up to us and they're like, well, we have an opportunity, we're like, why should we go back to it? We've been shoved to the side. We have been disenfranchised. We've been told that we don't belong. A lot of us are judged on appearance only instead of actually being seen for who we are. For me, I have a type of acne that looks a lot like I do meth, and I don't. But because of it, I have been resisted to go into stores. I have been harassed out of places. I have been very much on the edge of dealing with a lot of things that most people wouldn't have to, except for because of my appearance. It's easier to say, well, we're not going to help you. You're not worth our time because what you look like is not appropriate for our position, our project, our what may have you. These divides are what you guys are running into. These factors where we have dealt with enough trauma, which is what got us there, not necessarily our own choices, that end up with more trauma built on top of it, with rejection from society. And by the end of it, why should we go back to it? You want us to go back to stress, frustration, and anger. Most of us have learning disabilities. Most of us have issues connecting with other people. By the time that we are 6 months on the street, we no longer think like you do. Capitalism doesn't work for us anymore. And to go back to that type of lifestyle is almost impossible without the real will to do so. So in general, that is the priority here, in my opinion, is to gap that drastic difference between what you guys see that we need and what we feel we need. Thank you for your time. There is a lot more, but I know that we're on a time crunch.
Thank you for sharing, Jay. I appreciate your perspective, and it's important for us to hear from folks who have lived experience, and far too often we don't. It's too easy for people to dehumanize the situation, and that's just, it does more damage that way. So thank you for being willing to share, Jay. Rosemary?
Jay, I just wanted to say my heartfelt thanks for your presentation. It's really absolutely essential for us to hear your voice and the voices of those that you are championing as well. So I just thank you. That was very clear, and I would love to hear more from you. I hope we'll be able to do that in the future. It's really wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And
That was my first attempt at presentation.
Thank you again, Jay. And you're seeing lots of great comments in the chat, so hopefully you're able to see those. All right, so next on our agenda, we've invited Poe from the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance to come talk with us about the just finished legislative session, to talk about the successes that we saw in Washington with the just finished session, and then what we're going to be seeing in the coming months for opportunities for all of us in the room to engage and advocate for housing for folks going forward. So Poe, I give you the floor.
Right on. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. If it's okay, can I share my screen? All right,
you should
awesome.
have that ability. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Thank you. Let's go ahead and pull this up here. There we go. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see this right here. Like Rob said, I am Poe Leapai. I am the advocacy organizer at the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. I began in November, and I hit the ground running in preparation for session. It's so good to be here with you all to share our victories and a few things that we're going to work on for the upcoming year. So if you can look on the first screen there, the first PowerPoint screen there, we have on the bullet point. I'm just going to read them. I'm just going to go through them, and you can just follow along if you don't mind. Thanks, y'all. One of our victories, or our victories, are as follows: $175 million new dollars for the Housing Trust Fund, $120.4 million new dollars for rapid acquisition, and $10 million new dollars. Sorry, let me move this screen a little bit. For preservation. The Housing Trust Fund total funding over the 2-year budget is $288 million. The rapid capital acquisition total funding over the 2-year budget is $420 million. The total 2-year capital housing investments is $718.4 million. The age, blind, and disabled cash grant for people with disabilities is permanently increased from $197 to $417 per month. Increase begins in September. $55 million to address workforce capacity and sustainability for nonprofit homelessness service providers and permanent supportive housing providers. This creates stipends of $2,000 for frontline workers and funds a study to identify solutions to homeless service staffing and sustainability. Also, an additional 7.5 to increase admin grants to organizations under contract with Commerce. 1.3 million to address a shortfall for the Tenants' Right to Counsel program, plus an additional 2 million for eviction prevention legal aid. 4.5 million for foreclosure prevention to ensure that struggling homeowners can stay in their homes. 68.4 million for rental assistance. Before I go on to the next slide, I want to share with you all that I was tasked in my job as advocacy organizer to reach out to everyone all across the state who have lived experience, who have secondhand trauma. Secondhand trauma is also lived experience in my belief system. None of this would have been possible without those stories, just as Jay came and shared. And I hope you feel empowered, Jay, because your story is so powerful. And the numbers you all are seeing here is a testament of how powerful advocacy can be through sharing your story, through sharing the story of other folks with lived experience that you come in contact with and that you support. So I thank you all for all your work. On to the next slide. Our key policy victories are as follows. House Bill 1643 by Rep. Hackney. The REIT exemption is an incentive to sell property to affordable housing developers, passed with significant bipartisan support. It's waiting to be signed by the government. Senate Bill 5749 by Senator Trudeau, prohibiting landlords from requiring tenants to pay rent only through electronic means. House Bill 1866 by Rep. Chop, Apple Health and Homes passed and was funded with $60 million for permanent supportive housing, plus funding for operations, etc. This is also waiting to be signed by the government. A few policy losses that we are going to gear up and prepare for the 2023 session are as follows. This past session, we were disappointed by these losses. House Bill 2017 by Rep. Davis, the Housing Justice Act to prevent landlords from denying housing solely based on a tenant or family member's previous arrest or incarceration. House Bill 1904 by Rep. Peterson, increasing notice for significant rent increases to 6 months in order to provide tenants time to plan, save up for rent money, or secure more affordable housing. House Bill 2023 is the third one we will be working on from this past session, Rep. Hackney's bill, creating a process for tenants to enforce their rights and allowing the state attorney general to enforce the Landlord-Tenant Act under the state's consumer protection laws. That is my presentation this morning. I just also wanted to reiterate my appreciation for you all. I experienced homelessness months after my release from prison after I did a 2-year sentence for first-degree burglary. I did my time, got out with remorse. I was prepared to turn my life around. But unfortunately, barriers like not being able to get a home, not being able to get a job, my credit score was non-existent. I couldn't pay 3 times the rent to get in anywhere. So I say all that to say my heartfelt appreciation to you all for all the work you are doing. Sometimes it seems like, you know, it's slow progress, but it's still progress. Sometimes it feels like there's no progress. But I encourage you all, you have allies, accomplices, friends, and family across the state in the Housing Alliance, in me. And if there's anything you all need, please reach out. You have my support here at the Housing Alliance. And thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you. I'm here for any questions. I will leave my email as well in the chat for anyone that wants to reach out and make some connection. I'd love to get to know each and every one of you, all 62 of you. But thank you all. I hope you all have a blessed day. I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
So Poe, I think, let me take your slides down so we can all see each other again. So do you have any particular advice for folks in the room here who for what we can do to help build the case for more progress in the next legislative session and in these months in between?
Yeah, just my short answer to that is folks with lived experience come with a special level of expertise on figuring out the formula on what we need. We need to listen to our folks with lived experience, listen to those who experience their lived experience alongside them, those frontline workers, service providers, everyone there. Your story matters in all of this. And so I think just reaching out, if you know anyone, gather their names, get them ready, because when session comes next session, we're gonna come with a force of testifiers and storytellers and testimonies of folks that are gonna make lawmakers just, it's gonna be undeniable that you know, you have to have anyone with a human in the heart, or a human heart and a human brain, will be able to. What I saw honestly with testimony this session and past sessions that I've been a part of, lived testimony, lived experience just resonates on the whole different level with lawmakers and legislators. So if you ever get a chance, if you ever get a chance, anyone, to meet with lawmakers or legislators to, you know, to advocate, I think I would strongly encourage that, you know. And so, yeah, just reaching out to folks with lived experience and giving them a platform to amplify their stories is the short answer there. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Poe. And I see Teresa has her hand up.
Yeah.
Sorry for having my hand up so much, but this is exciting. So you've done a great job of reaching out to all of us. I think many of us have responded to your request for contacting folks. I'm wondering, with House Bill 2023, is that one all about the fact that the tenant rights that are in place don't have any, there's no teeth to enforce them? Is that behind that? And talk to that a little bit.
That's what I'm getting at too. Yes, while I'm fairly new to details on all, because we have a long list of things, but I believe that is the context that I'm picking up from that bill. Yes.
Great.
Thank you,
And
Joe,
Rosemary,
and thank
did
you,
I see your
everyone.
hand up too?
I froze for a minute there, so I took it down, but I mostly wanted to just say that Poe, the Alliance's work is just so inspiring, and the actions that you suggest for us to take on a really timely basis are just really an amazing resource. So that combination of having bills to act on in a specific time, and your advice about testifying and being prepared for next session, I look forward to hearing some specifics about the testifying that needs to be happening. So thank you very much.
Me too. Thank you, Rosemary. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your leadership as well. Thank you.
Anyone else with a question for Poe?
Well, I forgot to leave
I'm not seeing any right now. So if you have the opportunity to stay for a short period of time, we may have additional questions in the chat. But I just want to thank you for making yourself available to come to this morning's meeting and for the work that you're doing. And we look forward to talking with you again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and I will see you all again. Thank you, friends. Have a blessed day. Thank you.
You too. All right, so let's shift from the statewide picture to zoom in a little bit more on Pierce County. And the time I've put on the agenda here is just a brief moment that we'll include on all of our agendas as we move forward, to talk about what's the latest happening with the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness. So Garrett, I don't know if there's much that you could update today. I do know we could mention the ordinance that the County Council Committee considered earlier this week related to safe parking, but anything else you could share?
Boy, not really. So with the plan passing, the steering committee that helped put the plan together, really wrote the plan, is reformed as an advisory group, slightly different members, but mostly the same. And that first meeting is April 1st. And I think they'll have some word on some sort of directions. I think it'll be an interesting meeting. But I'm really just behind in kind of everything. So lots of bits that I'm going to be bringing in front of all of you. Things like implementation plan. Like, what should we be prioritizing first? Should we be putting work into workforce development or working on the cycle between homelessness and incarceration, right? We need to work on all these things, but even though I always say we need to do them all together, there will be some things that have to occur sort of in a serial fashion, and the funding plan is the other big one. And so I think we'll be kind of coming back with some ideas about how we might be able to work on that funding and get some feedback on practicality, or should be thinking about other things. So lots of things that are happening, just not as fast as I'd like to, because we only have kind of so much bandwidth, and so that's challenging. And a lot of the information kind of that we intend to publish is stuff that we still intend to publish and are going to be working on, but we're just slow bringing staff online. So I finally have a staff to start rebuilding some of our data infrastructure starting on Monday, so that's very exciting. And that's sort of a temporary allocation, because I whine so much, I think, from the IT department in county until we get someone hired on. But it's, there's lots of work. They'll be able to jump right in, and so it won't be an issue kind of going one step forward and two back. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where we said I'd be happy to take questions if folks have. One thing I've heard from a number of people is about how we're interacting with the other jurisdictions within Pierce County. And I didn't get a chance to listen in on the CVS, or the Community Vitality and Safety Committee of the City of Tacoma Council. I haven't had a chance to listen in on that, but a lot of folks, to their comments, they were pretty frustrated by the sort of lack of buy-in within the city. And I've had conversations with city council members as well, and sort of figuring out how we want to approach that kind of, and it's not just Tacoma, it's how we work with Tacoma, how we work with Fife and Puyallup and Lakewood. So I think all those relationships are just progressing, and it may be they progress at a different pace than the implementation of the comprehensive plan does. But I'm really anxious to have all those groups very involved in looking at this unified regional office. And I really, so that's the part that scares me a little bit, is not having kind of a full all in, let's see how this would work for Lakewood, or how this would work for Tacoma, or how this would work for Pierce County, kind of in that consultant-led process. So I think that's probably a priority, is figuring out how to bring everybody, in a real accountable and fully bought in way. So trust building, not the easiest stuff in the world.
Right. Well, I will talk a little bit about the Community Vitality and Safety Committee meeting during the advocacy updates a little later. Yeah, there was, if you do have an opportunity to listen and you are calm and try not to get frustrated, there's some good content in there where there's opportunities, I think, for municipalities to work together with the city or with the county and learn more about what's in the comprehensive plan, so that there can be a movement forward that's not separate, based on the location. Briefly, Garrett, anything you would share about the conversation around the safe parking ordinance? It seemed like there were not a whole lot of, there wasn't a whole lot of controversy in that conversation at the Community Development Committee meeting earlier this week. And I believe they did a do pass to move it forward to the full council. I just didn't catch the timing.
It's April 18th or something like that. It's quite a bit down the road. And again, my take from every conversation is they want to figure out how to do this in our community. And so that's, I think, really, really nice. They reached out earlier. They got input from Paula, that's running the safe parking program. And so I think if you have comments on it, they'll be more than happy to hear them. And there's plenty of time between now and when the ordinance comes before the full council for consideration.
Yeah.
And I think we care about what you have to do to have certain numbers of people at the sites. And they really just leveraged what was in the state ordinance. I mean, the catalyst is making sure that the county is, operating legally, that our code isn't in violation of the state code. But I think they also just wanted to be very explicit about what you can do and how you do it. And so, I'm excited about it. I think, even though safe parking's, a frustrating, intervention to offer people, but for a lot of folks, it's what they're comfortable with, and so I think it's shown really effective.
Thank you. So to build upon the conversation around the comprehensive plan to end homelessness at the county level, we thought we would do a breakout conversation this morning, considering the question of how can we work as coalition members to create more community support for solutions to homelessness that can be housed in people's own neighborhoods. How do we make that more palatable and acceptable, that neighborhoods and communities willingly host their neighbors who are now living on the streets or in the woods in a much more humane, caring, and sustainable pathway toward housing? How do we make that happen on the countywide level? So we thought we would do a breakout conversation, as we have been doing every week. We'll break into small groups and ask that one of you take notes from your group and paste your notes into the chat at the end when we come back. I'm gonna why don't we still do at least a 10-minute breakout this morning? And let me get the rooms set up, and I will reiterate our question that we're considering through the announcement to the breakout rooms. But so we don't waste more time, let's go. We'll be back here at about 10:04. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that was a good opportunity to meet each other and have conversation around the topic about building community support for solutions in our own neighborhoods. And I look forward to seeing the notes that everyone shares in the chat. Speaking of notes, I want to share on screen briefly the notes that Timothy pulled together for us from last week's chat. If you'll remember, last week we also asked, in light of the comprehensive plan passage, what are the aspects of our current homeless system that are working okay, and what are those that need to be addressed to make us more effective? So let me put this on the screen briefly. Hopefully everybody can see that. Let's see, I could probably even make it a little bigger so you can read it. So you'll see there's mention of the safe parking network as things that are working okay. Kudos for rental assistance and the work that folks like Valerie has been doing. And the work that Tacoma Pro Bono has been doing around eviction prevention. More and more about having good homeless diversion strategies available. And talk about how dynamic and widespread the Pierce County homeless response system is currently. So kudos for some of the good performance, and then go down to what needs improvement. Capacity comes up a lot. The lack of RV parking options. Yeah, frustration over the time that it takes between coming up with a potential solution and actually seeing it implemented. And then more focused on developing attainable housing. And what I will do is I'm going to drop this document into the chat. But I wanted to make sure we don't forget the conversation that we had last week, and that we actually try to move things forward from these meetings. So this is exactly why it's helpful for you to drop your information from your conversation into the chat. And now let me figure out where I got this so I can stop sharing and bring us back. So thank you, Timothy, for putting that together. And yes, I see the question about putting the list online. And we could post these summaries to the website. That's probably something that Garrett could do.
Garrett has been posting
Yeah.
these to the website every week pretty quickly after I get it back to them. Please feel free to share richly from your group report outs, because this last usually I try to keep these documents to about a page, but this turned into a 3-page document because there was just so much there, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of rich information there. So I will drop that in the chat as well so that folks can grab it from the chat if they would like. And let's look to our next updates in the meeting. So we're a few minutes late here for our government updates, but I do want to hand over the floor now to Caleb from the city of Tacoma to see if there are any updates from the city.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. I do have a couple of updates. One from the HEAL team. For last week, they were able to visit 9 locations, and 33 people were actually contacted from those 9 visits, and 9 of them were able to accept shelter or connections to other services. Part of that team is actually managed, is not managed by me, but we are recruiting for a HEAL team manager currently right now. So that is hopefully to start progressing rapidly faster so that we can create more opportunity and more structure around that team. For the comments about the count, for the time being, if you will, please reach out to me if you have discrepancies. I'm going to drop my contact information. And also, Rob, as I'm mentioning this, I did see on the agenda that we're missing 1 letter in my email. So if people use that to contact me, I think the C is missing in Tacoma, just as I'm talking about it now. So I'll drop my contact information. So if you feel like there is a discrepancy, I don't know the process of the count right now, but I would be really interested to have that conversation to find out, which also brings me, and I know Rob's going to talk about this, there is the discussion around Pierce County and city counting, and the alignment that needs to happen between the 2 agencies to be able to find a solution to be able to make sure that's as accurate as possible. And I know Linda mentioned that during the CVS as well, and that just want to affirm that that is the position of the teams to be able to do that and find something that is going to work together so that we're not working separately against that. And I'm sure Garrett would agree to that as well. And then I will drop also in the chat the city funding temporary emergency shelter performance that goes out to the council as well. So thank you all. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Great, thank you, Caleb. And I have fixed that address, so thank you for letting me know. Jay, your hand is up.
Just checking real quick. You said that the HEAL team management position, are they still hiring for that, or is that closed?
As far as I heard, they're still recruiting for it. Would it be helpful to post that in the chat as well?
Yes, please.
To people? Okay.
Great. Anyone else with questions for Caleb? Okay, so let's shift to our next government update. And I see Jeff Rogers on the screen from Pierce County Human Services. What do you have to share with us this week?
Yeah, Good morning. I got a lot to share today, but I'll do it really quickly. As I mentioned several weeks ago, our housing and essential needs funding opportunity is out. People can apply through next Thursday, March 31st. Again, that's a program that serves temporarily disabled folks. Eligibility is determined through DSHS at a state level. So if you're intending to apply, please do so by next Thursday. Earlier this week, we released what we're calling a coordinated entry system enhancement funding opportunity. We're increasing all of the activities around our front door of our homeless crisis response system known as coordinated entry, and have an opportunity that's approximately $3.5 million that's out. You can find all of these funding opportunities on our Human Services website at Pierce County, and applications for that opportunity are due back by April 21st. So if you're looking to do it, I'd encourage you to look quickly and look at the materials and the application, and I'd start working on those as soon as possible. The third thing is that there's also a project that's something that our council and executive branch here at Pierce County are very vested in and interested in, known as Community First Village. Earlier this week, our Pierce County Finance Department Procurement Division released a funding opportunity that's separate from our department process. So that tells you it's a very high profile project when they get involved at that level, because our council and executive's office is very interested in this new project. And then there's the funding opportunity that's out to research the feasibility of the project, start conversation about the development, construction, location, operations of that project. That document can be found at our Pierce County Human Services Procurement website for anyone that's interested in potentially developing what they're calling microhomes. And I believe their goal is to develop at least at a minimum 150 microhomes on a site to create a community first village modeled after a program in Austin, Texas. So there's 3 funding opportunities that are currently out at the county there. And lastly, I'll announce that we have announced our funding awards for our homeless housing and program funding opportunity that was released earlier in the year. We're funding just under $12 million in programs. The programs we're funding are for street outreach, day shelter and safe parking, emergency shelter, which is our overnight shelter programs, rapid rehousing, transitional housing, and of course, permanent supportive housing. And that award list is also at our County Human Services website. A lot of stuff around money going on over here nowadays. More to
you
come.
weren't kidding that you had a lot of announcements.
Yeah, and more funding opportunities to come. So, oh, can I just say one more thing real quickly, just so this group knows? HUD has released the YHDP, which is the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program funding from a national level. That's a project that serves youth. And so we will be applying as a continuum of care here in Pierce County to try to secure additional funding to address youth homelessness. We'll be submitting a county consolidated application by June, I believe is the date. That's on the list, but it's farther down because the due date is farther out than all the other things we're working on. So just wanted people to be aware that we're looking to apply for federal funding for youth homelessness.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for all that information. Let's shift over to Valerie with updates related to the rental assistance program.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Hopefully my microphone is in the right spot. Jeff, you look great. Love seeing you in person. So rental assistance is going great. New portal is open. We did send out a mass email to tenants and to landlords. They received it probably twice because we sent it from both buckets of email registrations that we had, encouraging them to log into the new portal, reset their password, upload additional requirements of documents that we now have, and really just communicating the delays. I had a wonderful interview with City Line yesterday or Wednesday. I hear it's airing today. So hopefully if you have a free extra 15 minutes, but amazing partners, South Sound and Tacoma Pro Bono are there as well. So feel free to watch that, but don't tell me because I won't watch it. I get super nervous. And then we are hosting landlord Q&A and tenant Q&A. Thank you, Rob. So on the first week of April, so April 5th and April 6th, we have 3 hours with Tacoma Pro Bono, the Washington State Department of Commerce, Landlord Mitigation, and the Dispute Resolution Center will all be there giving landlord-specific and tenant-specific information. So I will send those back out to you again. I sent them out about a week ago, but I'll do it again. We're still averaging over between $7 and $9 million per month that goes out. And in the last year, we've spent over $110 million checks cut directly to landlords and to tenants through the program. So while someone may not see the money going out, it's definitely out there. And we are still COVID impacted because we are still seeing a lot of households who have been directly impacted by COVID. So new applicants, we encourage to go in and apply. And then if you have a 14-day pay or vacate, we encourage you to please, please, please communicate with your landlord and go talk to our famous friends over at Tacoma Pro Bono because they are doing an awesome stand-up job. And that's it. And I have jury duty in the next week. So if I'm not around, that will be why. I'll be on a jury.
Thank you for doing your civic duty.
It is my civic duty.
All right. Next on our list of updates would be Jenny from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Glad to be with you as always. We are continuing to see number of cases and our hospitalizations declining, our COVID cases and hospitalizations, that is. The latest data we have is from February 27th to March 12th. So there is a lag, as you probably know, and we don't know what impact, if any, we will see from the lifting of the mask mandate. So we're very interested to see that. We have seen cases in Europe, rising across Europe, and not sure what we'll see here, but stay vigilant, get vaccinated. I'll drop my normal links in the chat as far as those resources. For folks that are interested in data, I'll also drop the data page. It's updated, those data are updated 3 times a week, I think, but if you're interested in looking at the dashboard, you could do that. We have not had new COVID cases at our shelters for several weeks now, which is amazing. Great news, makes me very happy. We are ending our contract with Ambulance that's been doing our vaccine clinics at the shelters and day center sites, those 10 sites we've been working with. That contract is ending at the end of this month. And so our internal team is working to fill that gap and working with the shelters collaboratively to come up with some new approaches so we can continue to provide that resource for folks. And then, as I've mentioned in prior calls, I'm working on, as the emergency response is slowing down, I'm working on how to expand and broaden my role in working with the shelters and other providers for other communicable disease issues. It's not just COVID. We've got a lot of other things that impact our neighbors living homeless that I want to sort of get back to having a broader approach. So I'm always open to suggestions and feedback from folks, as I hope you understand. I will put some testing resources, our usual links in the chat, including a form for businesses and organizations to request testing. And what else? We still have a survey open that the department is doing. Garrett mentioned it last week. It is open through the end of today, I believe. So I'll put that link there. Let us know your feedback about our COVID response. And then finally, I was told about some naloxone or Narcan kits. So if that's relevant for folks, there is a screening station at TPCHD at our south entrance on Pacific Avenue, and I'll share the address in the chat. And you can also email if you are with an organization or agency that would like to require or would like to ask about getting those kits. And yeah, finally, again, I just want to ask for your feedback on how I can show up to these meetings with a broader lens, looking outside of COVID. So I will drop my email for anyone who doesn't have it. And that's all for me. Are there any questions?
one for you, Jenny.
Yeah.
So the naloxone kits, are those something that would be available for individuals who are doing outreach?
I believe so. I believe so. But I will. I'm not on that team, but I can connect folks with treatment services. The screening station, I think, is available to anyone.
Okay.
And then I believe that the additional information is at DOH, so I can share that email address for folks.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll be learning more in the coming weeks about all of those services, so I can better answer those questions when they come up. So thanks.
Yep. Anybody else with any questions for Jenny? I
Garrett?
see Garrett's hand up.
Well, not really a question,
Oh.
but the opioid task force is
Yeah.
also having a naloxone distribution and
Great.
training event. And that's on our website. It's on April 15th. So the Ides of April. And it's at the Pierce Transit Transfer Station at 72nd and Portland Avenue. So it's a Saturday, I think. Actually, I don't know what it is, but that's another opportunity for anyone in the community. So if you wanted to do it, but your agency doesn't necessarily allow it, and you'd like to have it for off agency times, or if you're an individual just doing volunteering out to do outreach, I think it's an opportunity kind of for anyone to get the training and get access to something that can save a life.
Thanks, Garrett. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for the updates, Jenny.
Have a great weekend.
And for our last government updates, I'm not sure if we have anyone representing the Tacoma or the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management with us this morning. So let's pause for a moment and see if there are any updates from DEM. All right, not hearing anyone on the call. As a reminder, folks from Pierce County DEM do like to attend these meetings, but they're not here every week, and they certainly show up when there's a need. So we appreciate that. So let's shift to our next item on the agenda, and that would be an advocacy update. And what I have been trying to do in these updates is just provide some heads up of items that are coming up in the coming week, where people could either listen in or provide testimony. I do not do a great Maureen Howard imitation, but I try. So looking at the Tacoma City Council, the agenda for the study session and for the regular meeting do not have items that are directly related to homelessness. However, I do urge folks, if they have the time, you never quite know what will come up during other items on study session. That's always a good thing to listen to. The study session takes place at noon every Tuesday. So if you have the opportunity to tune into Zoom and listen, that can be a good spot for a heads up. I'm not aware of any items for Pierce County coming up in the next week that would be critical to our work. I'm sure Sally will let me know if there is. Anything that comes to mind, Sally?
In support of the radios.
Their agendas aren't posted yet. They
Yeah.
don't post their agendas till Friday afternoon, but I will let you know then.
Yeah, that's great. And I will send out an email to either Sally or I will send something out to the list if there's something that could use our attention next week. What I did want to talk about a little bit, and I urge Sally and others who were participating last night in the City Council's Community Vitality and Safety Committee meeting, to share a little bit about the content that was discussed during that meeting. So as a reminder, the City Council last year was considering reinstating some sort of a camping ban in Tacoma, and that item never came to a full vote of the council during the year, but the excuse me, full council did ask the CVS committee to make a recommendation by the end of the first quarter to the full council regarding a camping ban, and that was one of the items on the agenda. last night, and it was the majority of the time spent on the agenda. Just to cut to the chase, the current committee members made a recommendation that no camping ban be adopted at this time, but it be reevaluated when sufficient housing and/or sheltering services are adopted and developed. And then the committee went into a very long conversation, a little bit of stream of consciousness, creating recommendations that the committee will send to the full council. We have been told, I know Richard reached out to Deputy Mayor Ushka last night to see if we could get a copy of the document that they were building and discussing during yesterday's meeting. And it sounds like that will be available. It'll be going to the full council at some time soon. So we will be watching the agenda packets for a study session conversation that will be coming up related to that. And then also one of the things that was mentioned by Linda Stewart, the Director of Neighborhood and Community Services, is that the city will do an update on its homelessness action plan at the April 12th study session. So that is one of those things where you may want to put that date on your calendar for noon on April 12th, when the city will have a more substantive conversation about their planning efforts around homelessness in Tacoma. Much of the conversation during the CVS meeting revolved around whether the city should create its own data system to track the number of people who are homeless in Tacoma, or whether there should be a coordinated effort with Pierce County. I do urge folks, if you have the time, you can go listen to the information from the CVS meeting. I took all kinds of screenshots of the document that they're creating on the fly, but I don't think it's very useful to share that because literally it was changing by the moment. So we will be sure to share that document when it's available publicly. Anything that any others who are in the meeting would like to share with the group? Yeah, Sally.
I think the question about the numbers and how they are done is a really important question, and members of the coalition should be watching that closely, partly because there's already uneasiness about how the city does its numbers, and the fact that people don't really, identify a city boundary as a place they stop when they're moving around. So there's a lot around the numbers that I think we really need to pay attention to. The other thing is, I think the challenge right now in terms of the county's plan is that there are people in the city who have long held beliefs that the county has not been interested in taking on these larger roles, and so they're cynical about whether this plan represents a significant change in how the county is going to do things. And so I think another part of our work is to be sure that the Tacoma elected officials understand that the group of people who worked on both the shelter plan and the comprehensive plan was a broad-based group, many of whom live and work in Tacoma, right? So the Tacoma perspective is well represented in that work, I think. And to not dismiss the value of the plan when they haven't read it. So there's a lot of education to do with Tacoma elected officials and even maybe high-ranking appointed officials around the value and importance of the plan to the city of Tacoma and to the county as a whole. Having said that, I think the other piece is then to hold the county accountable for what they say they're going to do. And I think that is an ongoing effort that the committee that Garrett described will be part of, but all of us as advocates need to be part of that work as well. So those are the things I took away.
Yeah, there was a lot of content. It was a rich conversation, and I know there was, I think I had a different perspective of it than others. I know Richard and I were emailing each other during the meeting, and I appreciated hearing his perspective on the conversation as well. So again, if you do have an interest, it's the recording from that meeting will be available if it's not already available on the website.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Richard?
Just what the one thing that I thought I heard clearly by not doing the camping ban was that the committee was going to retain, and they use the word review, the administrative clearing of encampments, which I refer to as sweeps. And were they to do that, that would be a remarkable step forward, having them consider the operations of that department. I need to review, maybe go back and listen again myself, but there were some interesting moments of the jurisdiction that they were going to retain in committee as they continue their work. And so I think they clearly did not want to simply punt on the camping ban issue, but rather to consider some of the other policy issues that are involved as they go forward. So I'm anxious and will be looking forward to seeing this document as it's revised and completed.
Yeah, thanks for that, Richard. And to close us out, Sally, you had your hand up.
They did say that, and I was encouraged by that because what they get told all the time is to stay in their policy lane. Well, their policy lane is actually 3 lanes. It's doing the policy, it's overseeing the policy to make sure it's implemented the way they intended, and then it's evaluating the impacts of the policy to make sure that the policy did what was expected and didn't have unintended consequences. And what happens is the staff take over the 2nd and 3rd lanes when in fact those are the council's lanes. And so that's one of the points I'm going to make to Catherine when I follow up with her.
Great. All right, so I wanted to carve out a couple of moments that we don't really have this item on the agenda, but Ed Jacobs wanted to share some data, some information from the homeless memorial that took place last weekend or related to that. And so Ed, let me give you the ability to share your screen. All right, you should have that now.
Oh, thanks, Rob. You know, I would have flunked seminary if I couldn't make a comment or two. So one of the things that you will see on here is, is the title. Can you all see that? Statistics from my people. Until the homeless population becomes our people with each one of us, we're not there yet. So these people died in December, January, and February. And these are statistics that you will not find anywhere else because they're based on the people that died. The average loss in years is 28 years for one of my people to die. 35% of their lives on average is gone. Another one, 48% were under the age of 40. This is new. This is different than what we've seen in the past. This is a much higher number. The oldest was 81 and the youngest was 26. So the drugs were involved, 42% of the deaths. So what that means is in their cause of death, there's drugs somewhere. It may not have been just an overdose, but there were drugs involved somewhere. Violent deaths, and within the last week, I've received notices from the medical examiner of, I think it's now up to 6 homicides in the last week. So that's going up 19%. Hypothermia, this is really interesting. You can't freeze to death if it's not below freezing. This proves it wrong. You can freeze to death when it's 35 and 36 degrees outside if the wind chill factor is 27 degrees. 2 people did it. 13% of the deaths were in public places. Tacoma Dome Station, Clover Park High School, tennis courts. These are in plain sight of people passing by, of our outreach teams. And I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, but you know, of our police and fire folks when they're on calls. So you see somebody that maybe isn't moving or doesn't look so good, do something about it. Call somebody. Go over and ask them if they're okay from a safe distance away. Not sure that that would have prevented any of these deaths, but it certainly would have had the opportunity to do that. 3 deaths happened of the 42 in encampments. Only 1 being violent. So when we talk about encampments and talk about crime within encampments, you know, we certainly can't say that there isn't any. There is, but only 1 was violent within the encampment, 1 death. So I just wanted to, you know, when I started doing the homeless memorials, I didn't realize that the statistics came along with it, but when you look at the information I get and the sources I get it from, these are irrefutable. I mean, call me and we can talk about it, but you really can't do anything about these. So that's what I have.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of thanks in the chat to you, Ed, for doing this work. We really didn't have access to this kind of information before you started doing this work, so it's really valuable.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
So on that sobering note, let's shift over. We've got a couple other things we wanted to talk about before our meeting wraps up, and we got about 20 minutes left. I know Jan Runbeck is not here, but maybe someone who attended the Safe Sites for All meeting could share a little bit about what's up with that committee. Ed, do you have anything you could, off the top of your mind, share?
Sure. We are working on the distribution of emergency materials, finding sites that will store materials for weather emergencies so that our outreach workers aren't going just to one place, but we'll have hopefully 10 sites distributed within the county that they can go to get blankets and water and to keep people alive for the first 5 or 6 days, so that then the emergency folks from the county will have time to kick in and fill in behind us. Anybody who is interested in being on one of the outreach teams, we have lots of room for volunteers. So there's that, and also the safe sites, or the safe parking. was discussed and is moving forward. Anything else that anybody can think of?
No, we did talk since it was Monday and the next day was going to be or actually maybe it was that day that the Pierce County Council Committee was discussing the safe parking ordinance. So we did talk about that, and I know Jan did make public comment during that meeting about some of the concerns about the potable water issue at safe parking sites. So,
and Jay has a
Yeah.
hand up.
Sorry to keep on interrupting and stuff, but curious question. I'm working with the coalition out here in Gig Harbor about winter necessities and storing them and finding locations. But something came up with one of our conversations. Summer is coming up. What are we looking at for heat sites? Because as much as we suffer from cold chill and not serving a community at a high enough temperature to save them, we're also going to suffer from heat stroke and losing people during the summer. Are we looking at what we need to do for that?
Yes.
Yeah, that is part of the effort as well, to respond to everything from any kind of emergency that comes up that will impact our houseless population.
And we did have one death from the heat last summer.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, so that's the updates from the Safe Sites for All Committee. Any other coalition committee updates to share with the group? Rosemary, was there anything we wanted to share this week?
I don't think so.
Okay. We will soon though, because I know we're going to have a conversation about the mission statement of the coalition and some proposals there that are being discussed at the steering committee. So this creates some time for us for general announcements, good trouble that folks are up to and want to share with the larger group that are still in the meeting. And I see Garrett's hand up first, and then Kathy.
So I just wanted to give a little update on how Maureen Howard's doing. So she's had a rough couple of weeks. I haven't talked to her. I've just talked to her daughter. And so she had yesterday her second of the chemo treatments. So in her pathway, she's like 3 chemo treatments, surgery, 3 more chemo treatments, right? So we're still early in the process, but she's still humming along, just really worn out and really not responding to pretty much anybody. So hopefully things will get better for her and she'll feel well enough to kind of reach out, but just wanted to give folks an update and keep her in our thoughts.
Thanks for that update, Garrett. Appreciate knowing how Maureen's doing, and I know a lot of us send our good thoughts. Kathy, your hand's up.
Yes, so I put my updated contact information in the chat just a moment ago, and I just realized that we can use the Action Network website to plan our events and to build our own kind of listserv distribution list. So I'm hoping to use that resource more and more. Our next meeting is on Monday night. We're doing a hybrid format. So if people are comfortable with meeting in person, we will meet. Once you register, you'll get the full details. And then via Zoom as well. And we'll have that information on our Facebook page and on the Action Network. And also we are co-hosting the Home in Tacoma for All forum on Saturday, April 23rd at the Evergreen Tacoma campus, along with Tacoma DSA's housing committee. We're partnering with them because they're doing great work. They're actually doing direct action and homeless outreach with Serve the People. And so that's one of the reasons why we decided to, yeah, I'm sure we all used to be all in person. COVID's changed everything. And so we're just really looking forward to that forum. We started forming that idea as an antithesis to the business summit that took place on January 26th. And where theirs was a exclusive event, ours is slated to be more inclusive. And we would love for some of the folks in this room to participate with us. I would love for Poe to come and talk. I would love for Jay to come and give that. We are desperate for folks with lived experience, and we know that the Lived Experience Coalition has a list of guest speakers, so we'll be tapping into that as well. But we have some exciting things coming, and I'm really excited that we are now an independent organization, and that means that we set our agenda, we set our priorities, and our members are really excited about being able to, we've talked a lot today about jurisdictional concerns. We know that we're strong and recognized in the city, and we want to be able to reach out to tenants, especially those who are being threatened with displacement in Pierce County too. You know, we don't just want to be in this really small, we just want to expand our territory. That's what I'm trying to say. I need more caffeine. But at any rate, it just, I really appreciate us being welcomed and open in this space, because, you know, that's really who we are. We're anti-displacement for the housed and the unhoused. That's really who we are. And we have met with the McKinley apartment tenants, and we plan on meeting with them more in the future as their deadline to leave looms large. It's the end of June. And I'm going to be working with whoever wants to work with us on kind of a divide and conquer strategy. I don't think that one agency needs to rehome all these people. I think that if we work together, there's 14 units, and I'm not sure how many exact people that represents, but there's 14 units that need to be rehomed by the end of June. So if anybody has any ideas about that topic, please feel free to reach out to me at the email, and I'd welcome your input on that, please. Thank you so much, you guys.
And thanks for being here. We're glad you're here participating. Richard, your hand's up.
I posted earlier the information, but I've got a forthcoming trip to California visiting homeless encampments, programs, people, advocates. Most everything I know about homelessness has come from kind of the center of Tacoma, so I'm going to head south. We're going to be hitting San Diego, Bakersfield, Stockton, places along the way. If any of y'all have superb contacts or programs that I should be aware of, or people that I might meet along the way down in our neighbors to the south, please reach out. I'm doing a lot of reaching out right now, connecting with people. I've got meetings already scheduled for San Diego, but I'm looking for good people that know what's going on the ground. So if anybody has any information, be welcome to hear about that. Thank you.
When do you take off again, Richard?
April 1. So I've got just over a week. Next Thursday is the Voices to End Homelessness meeting, and then I'll leave the next day.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Any last items for the good of the order from folks?
One question for Richard real quick. Do you have a time span in each location or a set plan for how long you're going to be in each place?
Not exactly, but it is developing. I would rather do fewer cities and have better quality visits. And so right now, San Diego is shaping up to be really good. Fresno is shaping up to be really good. And some of that's just going to happen on the fly. If I connect, there's things I want to see, like in Los Angeles, there is a Koreatown coalition. It's not a formal group, but they go do outreach every day. So I'm hoping to hook up with those people. So it's just going to kind of depend, but I'll be on the road for about a month, and I will be posting on my own Facebook, but also Compassion Tacoma, just sort of notes from the road and photographs and things that I'm learning as I go. But I really wanting to expand my understanding of homelessness, and the numbers in California are much more daunting than we have here in Pierce County. So it's going to be quite a trip.
I have a couple of people that are referred to as scabby kids or dirty kids, and they're people that usually travel. But a couple of them are in San Francisco currently, and one of them in particular is dying of brain cancer. And I think that you could learn a lot from her and her scabby kids. So that's the reason I asked. If she's still in that area when you're down there, I will let you know.
I would welcome anything, and I will do the follow-up and reach out if I get the information. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Richard. We look forward to your dispatches from the road. And Patricia, your hand's up.
The numbers are almost equal in Seattle, even though they're not representative. I just want you to know when it comes to the California numbers. So there's also differences, and also the numbers that are here, the population here do migrate over the border into Pierce County, just as a frame of reference. But Richard, I gave you some of the best resources to start off with, and feel free to reach out for me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
And Richard, I don't know if you can respond. Somebody requested your email address in the chat as well. I can put your email address in there if you can't.
I think I can. I put it up earlier, but I'll do it again. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so we have come to the end of today's meeting. There's still an opportunity. I always like to create space for people to provide feedback on today's meeting, as well as ideas for upcoming meetings. So if you would like to share what you thought went well today, what could have been done better, and what we can do better at a future meeting, this is an opportunity. You can do it either just raise your hand and let us know, or you can also drop something in the chat. But I like to create this space, so let's hold that space for a moment. Thank you, Jay, for being willing to speak. We appreciate it. That context really matters. All right, so I do want to say I appreciate each and every one of you for being here this morning, and so many of you being here every week. And I hope everybody has a good, safe weekend coming up. If you have the time and interest, there will be a group of us hanging out after this meeting to plan for next week's meeting. So if you have ideas for that, that'd be a great opportunity. For the rest of you, I wish you all a happy Friday. Thanks for being here.